Thank you, guys. Well, let's bring in now trial attorney Bryan Rotella, also founder and managing partner at Genco. Did I say the right? Genco Legal, right? Genco, right?
Genco is right, Arthel. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I want to get it right. So, Bryan, I want to get to the specifics about the trial in a moment, but I want to start with an overview. I mean, some of them may not take place this year, but when you look at why there are potential Trump trial dates on the 2024 calendar from a legal lens, how did we get here?
It's a great question, Arthel. And let me tell you, having represented defendants for my entire career, essentially, it's often a strategy that you want to bring as many, if you have one defendant, you want to bring as many cases against the defendant so that they spend a lot of legal dollars, they get tied up. Here is really different, and I would not have taken this strategy if this is a coordinated strategy by the Democratic Party, because all of these cases are actually working against one another to get to what their ultimate goal is, which is a trial date before the election and a conviction of the former president. By having all these cases with all the hair that they have on them, I'm not sure, except for that New York case, which is the hush money case by Stormy Daniels, I don't know that any of these other cases make it to trial.
Yeah. No, of course, the former President Trump and his supporters, they claim that this is election interference. Do Trump's attorneys have a hand in the alleged interference by delaying the trials as close to the election day as possible?
I don't know that they'd have a hand in the interference, Arthel. What I would say is this is good defense strategy. Look, if you have somebody who has a potential to, your client ultimately could, for lack of a better term, get off by having if he were to win the election in November, your strategy is going to be to take the air out of the ball. And that's what his lawyers are doing piece by piece in each of these cases, from the disqualification motion that was just this legal buffet of an ethical mess in Georgia to what we're seeing in the appeal now on whether the former president has sovereign immunity in the case that prosecutor Jack Smith brought on the January 6th case. What they're doing is strategically taking the air out of the ball to get to that November election when the president's going to have, if he becomes the president again, he's going to have a lot of latitude on ultimately what the outcomes are.
So your firm, Genco Legal, is based in Tampa. It specializes in determining what is most legally threatening to your clients' businesses. Are there any of the multiple cases against Trump that pose the greatest legal threat to the former president?
Again, great question. And yes, the case that concerns me the most of all the cases against the president, truthfully, is that classified documents case. And I don't know that all the lawyers would agree with me on that. But that case, they have him on tape. Arthel, any lawyer who defends clients, we get concerned when our client's on tape and they're saying something that just can hurt their case, even if it's taken out of context. And those tape recordings of the former president on the classified documents hurts him. Plus, you have, remember, even though the current president was found to not be ultimately indicted by the special prosecutor just last month, that special prosecutor made a distinction between what happened with President Biden and former President Trump, and saying that former President Trump was not as forthcoming in bringing documents forward. So that combination of facts, if I'm representing President Trump, that case concerns me. And again, it really is the audio tape, because other than that, there really isn't that type of evidence in any of these other cases.
Well, let's go to the case in Georgia. That's where we started. I'll end on there with that one, where the former president is accused of illegally pressuring Georgia officials to overturn Biden's 2020 win in Georgia. The call, you're talking about what's being heard, the call where Trump can be heard saying, I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have. So that case is scheduled for August 5th. But as we well know, in 2 weeks, the judge will decide whether or not to remove Georgia DA Fani Willis as top prosecutor. So how do you think the judge will rule? How should he rule?
I feel bad for Judge McAfee on this Georgia case about these documents. I think he's going to determine, based on listening to that carefully yesterday, Arthel, that he's going to apply the standard, which is that there's an appearance of a conflict here, which is not the higher standard, that is an actual conflict. And the reason being is, I think it's because former district attorney Willis took the stand, and she did not help herself in looking very defensive about this relationship that she had that clearly was a boyfriend, girlfriend, for lack of a better term, relationship with the special prosecutor that she hired that made $650,000 apparently on this case, prosecuting not only the former president but the other defendants. First thing we always do as lawyers is we do conflict.
Bryan, I so apologize, but I have a hard break. I'm so sorry. I really enjoyed talking to you, but I have to go. Bryan Rotella, thank you very much. We'll be right back. Thanks, Bryan. We'll be right back.